A biennial is an art event that happens in a country every 2 years. It is one of the biggest art events that the country hosts. It's a global event where local global artists are invited under curator. And the curator curates or invites these various artists under a certain thematic premise. Hi everyone, my name is Qudsia Rahim. I am the co-founder, one of the co-founders of the Lahore Biennale Foundation. It is an arts organization based out of Lahore, and some of the key pillars for this foundation is to bring art into public spaces, work with the arts as a medium of building bridges, starting conversations, bringing people on the same platform, and creating critical dialogue. The foundation was started by a group of friends who came together, with the same vision and mission. So some of us are advisors to the foundation. Some of us actually run the foundation and part of the board of the foundation. And I think this was very important for the foundation's growth, foundation's broad-based approach. So we started in 2014, and it's been about almost 9 years. So next year, when we do the third Lahore Biennial, will be the 10 years of the foundation. So for those who are not familiar with the concept of a biennial is an art event that happens in a country every 2 years. It is one of the biggest art events that the country hosts. It's a global event where local global artists are invited under curator. And the curator curates or invites these various artists under a certain thematic premise. We're very lucky that we were able to actually conduct 2 biennials, one in 2018 and the other one in 2020, just before the pandemic hit. So we were very lucky, and we're known as one of the last international art events that the world was able to see just before the pandemic. Reflecting on the last 9 years of the foundation, we have been working in bringing art in the public spaces. We have conducted 2 Lahore Biennials where we saw a lot of local international artists come together under an umbrella to talk about various contemporary issues. Contemporary conversations were being taken place. I think these conversations are very important, especially for a country like Pakistan, and especially for a cultural city like Lahore. Lahore is perhaps the cultural capital of Pakistan, and certainly was known as the cultural capital of undivided India, right? And so we see a lot of art, culture, literature, other disciplines of the arts. It's inbuilt in us. It's part of our DNA. So for Lahore to host a biennial was a very natural thing to do. For us to actually work in these disciplines that we grew up in was a very natural thing to do. Everybody in Lahore knows, and Pakistan also, but Lahore knows about our local artists, are familiar with our local writers, and I think it's a very good thing, Everybody knows a share or two, right? And at the right moment, they know exactly when to place it. So I think for Lahore to host the biennial was a very natural thing. And the last biennial we did in 2018 with Zahoor Ul Akhlaq, who was the director of the biennial, Between the Sun and the Moon. She invited over 80 artists from all over the world. And we got a lot of artists from the UAE area. We got a lot of artists from our neighboring countries. And imagine, we have not been culturally engaged with these guys forever. So we have economic ties, we have other ties, but not cultural ties or art-based conversations that happen. So here was the first time we had now invited artists from the neighboring countries. The other thing that happened was that, a lot of conversations were similar. One project I thought was most amazing, which I have to bring to life. So Reem Falaknas, one of the artists, UAE artists, who was invited to come to Pakistan to show at the biennial, she said, I love pigeons, and I follow pigeon racing. And she said that in UAE it's quite a big phenomenon, and she wanted to actually come and study what was happening in our part of the world. And so we discovered that it was actually the pigeon races, pigeon rearing, those kind of things had actually gone from the South Asia, from Pakistan, into the UAE countries. And this was now something that we had in common. And so she was very excited. She did a very interesting project based on that. Lots of other conversations happened. Another very important project was by Alma-Mater, this artist. She was following Ulugh Beg, this philosopher, historian, astrologer, astronomer, a mathematician. So his journey, right? So he came from Iran, made his journey through Pakistan, went and settled in Afghanistan. And during that process, there was a whole lot of discovery, a lot of intrigue that went through, and lots of findings. And when she worked through this project, we realized that how knowledge transferred, how knowledge was carried, how knowledge was discovered. And I think these kind of places that the Biennial Foundation is able to actually, these kind of conversations that it's able to open or present or invite these kind of these artists to interact, I think it becomes very, very special. So it's like taking charge of your own narrative, being in charge of your destiny, and creating a path, a history for yourself. And I think these are very important because these are the people we need to work with, and our local artists also. So we have some incredible example of Sabah Khan and her colleagues who went through a journey of all the dams and rivers, and then brought a project together on water politics, on water division, and other areas associated with it. And it seems so normal, so natural. So arts outside of the realm of pretty pictures on the drawing room walls. What does it mean? The whole role of the foundation is to redefine those boundaries and question them and engage with them, and invite artists to actually present their work that actually expand the definition of what art is. I think these were some of the concerns of our foundation is looking at actively at all given times, at any given time, and would like to engage with, and we're very happy to be doing that. We are a contemporary arts foundation, so contemporary issues are incredibly important to us. So whether they are climate-based, whether they are social, whether they are have other concerning issues, I think it is a foundation that responds to it. We have under the foundation a climate action program that we're working with Afforestation Lahore. In the last 3 years, the consortium has planted over 2 million trees in the city of Lahore in the urban setting. And I think it was very important because through research, we found out that Lahore had lost about 75% of the tree cover. And now certain bonds or certain things had broken, where we see the climate a certain way, where we see smog and other challenges. So one of the studies had indicated that we need to actually spend more time and review the 7 tiers of the forest and see why the birds have disappeared, why the insects have gone. So bringing back the ecology or the biodiversity was very important. So we're working currently on a couple of pilot projects that is primarily geared towards that. And now we are working on important projects where we're bringing in Bagh-e-Hakimana, so all the various herbs and medicinal plants and those kind of things, and working towards a garden with that. हम लोग hikmat हमारे लिए important है. हम एक सूफी culture को belong करते हैं. So if you look at old shrines and old Sufi culture, you will see that the shrine always had a medicinal garden with it. And when we studied further, we realized that all of these things are important and they're part of our society. If you, even at home, when you get sick, your nani dadi says, eat this and you'll get better, have that and you'll get better. So we're taking that tradition a step forward and creating Bagh-e-Hakimana. So to work with local indigenous plants and species, the 7 tiers of forest, and try and figure out how can we actually contribute in bringing back the biodiversity and the ecology. So while there's certain things that are not in our control, and however important they are also important to pursue. So I think it's very, very nice that we are able to do, botanic gardens with the local government on indigenous species. So those kind of things, or another project that we're working on, non-timber forest produce. So this is also very important to us, because what we're doing here is, we know that 1.6 billion people live in forest economy, right? And in that capacity, timber does not need to be the only sole source of income. So if we use the forest bounty to fulfill the needs of the forest community, which is honey, which can be, nuts and herbs and resin and so many other ways, right? To create a forest economy so that people are more reliant on the bounty of the forest and not so much on the timber of the forest. So, this is another module that we are developing. So we have lots of these things that we are working with artists, with the scientist community, with the academics, and seeing how do these interlocking conversations and disciplines take us to new channels of communication and delivery. The Lahore Biennale, it's always working with arts in its finest forms, and what is contemporary and what is the future. I think right now we are at par with any artistic conversation that's happening anywhere else in the world. Pandemic has hit not only the rest of the world, but of course the global south very heavily. It has changed a lot of conversations around the arts, and a lot of conversations, which means the forms of engagement has changed. So while the virtual world has become a primary source of communication, primary source of interaction, what is a contemporary arts foundation? How does a contemporary arts foundation respond to an urgency like that? One of the projects that we currently working on is a virtual museum. So I guess the question that we're asking our academics, our artists are, what if now that we say that the crypto worlds have become very important, the online space has become very important, and of course the traditional forms of content making is challenged. So then what's the response to that? So we're doing a project in which we're inviting 7 curators to present 7 different directions on how to respond to now a virtual space. So now it's not, this virtual museum is not about object making or object presentation. This is your idea, your content, or your thought process being specially designed to be in that space. So we're really excited, looking forward to what this project will take shape, because I think it's one of those things very close to my heart. And let's see later in the year what our curators have put together. So we saw over the last few years for the biennial that we see a lot of biennial tourism, and we see various organizations, formal and informal, being formed to invite people to come and see the biennial. For cross-cultural conversation, it is necessary for the mobility of the art and the artists and the people who want to come and view. So it is all part of the ecological symbiotic relationship. And in order to do that, I think we're getting incredible support from the government, with whom we work very comfortably, and we're looking at various methods of making the system more smoother and more efficient. In order for the Lahore Biennale to function, or any biennial to function, it is imperative that the government works alongside with our vision and mission. And I think we saw that happen here. We saw that collaboration take place very effectively. While, we were doing the biennial, and I had an influx of guests, and I did not know where to house them, how to build logistics around it. And the government said, okay, fine. We went in conversation with the government, and we heads of various institutions are coming, royal family members are coming, we see art influencers are coming, and we needed facilitation. And when we went in conversation with the government, of course, it was really, really incredible how we got all of that figured out. So whether it was 13 venues in the city of Lahore and making sure that the logistics and the security over there was impeccable so that nobody stopped, but it's like open and free access to everybody, to people coming in and out of Pakistan for these events, for use of locations or other facilitations. I think it is a very good place, and it's a very good time for the arts that we see these kind of collaborations, positive collaborations taking shape with local, corporate, and government. So while we do this, we're bringing various conversations locally, globally together. We are now as part of a global network. It changes a lot for Pakistan. Already it has. We see tourism increase. We see art being appreciated. We see now artists being engaged with other projects outside of Pakistan lately. Within Pakistan, some people are inviting artists to collaborate with other entities, commercial, non-commercial. So arts and artists are becoming part of the mainstream conversations. And one of the desired disciplines now to actually invest, and if your child says, I want to be an artist, it's not a dogma anymore. It is not something that's considered, nahi, aap artist nahi ban sakte, aap paise nahi kamayenge, aapka ye nahi hai. I think a lot of that has changed. We have worked in this field for the last 9 years, and we see all these conversations actually changing and becoming positive. And I think this is certainly one of the disciplines that I would strongly encourage you and everybody to actually spend time. If your children are interested in this, I think nothing is better. I mean, I can't say nothing is better than that, but then yes, it is a viable place, to a viable discipline to actually let your children go and get educated and find their journey, and certainly they will make you all very proud, all of us very proud. I see the future incredibly bright for the arts. I see the future incredibly strong. You already have seen what music is doing, what film, theater, drama, cinema, and arts are doing. I think it is time for all of us to come together and take claim of our art industry, of our art world, and invest our time in this, invest our future in this.